The first time I ever heard a sound like that, I thought the ceiling was alive. It was just past midnight, and I'd left the hallway light on. A soft yellow glow spilling into my bedroom. Something, a faint scratch, made me open my eyes. At first I blamed the house settling, but the noise kept coming. A dry, delicate click, as if fingernails were tapping against wood. I sat up, heartbeat pounding in my ears. The room smelled faintly of dust and rain. My eyes adjusted and I followed the sound to the far corner, where the ceiling met the wall. That's when I saw it. A spider, huge, legs stretched wide like crooked twigs, clung to the upper molding. Its shadow sprawled across the ceiling, impossibly large in the dim light. I froze. It didn't move at first, only shifted one leg as if it knew I was watching. The silence pressed in, heavy and close. My breath caught. Every instinct told me to leave the room, but I couldn't make myself move. I could almost hear the tiny creak of each joint as it started down the wall, slow and deliberate. I grabbed the closest thing, a shoe, a book, anything, and took a step back. My pulse hammered so hard I felt it in my throat. For a heartbeat, we both stayed still, like a standoff. Then it dropped. The sound of its body hitting the floor was softer than I expected. A gentle thud that somehow felt louder than a scream. I staggered toward the door, but it skittered across the floorboards with shocking speed, legs blurring in the corner of my eye. I slammed the door and leaned against it, heart racing, skin crawling as if dozens of invisible legs crept along my arms. Behind the door came silence again. Too much silence. The kind that makes you wonder if something is waiting just out of sight. Even now, years later, I can remember the way that shadow moved across the ceiling and the way the air seemed to thicken around me. Sometimes, when the house is quiet, I still hear that soft, clicking sound. Some nights I wake to it, that same dry tap, like something brushing the wood above my head. I tell myself it's the pipes, or a loose branch outside, but my body remembers before my mind does. The chill slides down my back, the way it did that night when I stood in the dark hallway, waiting to hear where it would land next. I started keeping the lights on. Every corner of the house glows now. A lamp in the living room, a faint bulb over the stairwell, a nightlight burning in the kitchen. Still, the silence finds me. It waits until I'm half asleep, when my breathing slows and the walls creak in the cold. Friends laugh when I tell them. It was just a spider, they say, as if the word just can make the memory smaller. They weren't there to see how its shadow spread wider than the window frame, how it seemed to know my every step. They didn't hear the way the floorboards whispered. After I slammed the door, a faint shiver of wood, as if something heavy pressed against the other side. I never saw it again. But sometimes, when I step barefoot onto the cool floor at night, I feel the echo of those quick, dry movements, a brush of air near my ankles, a breath of something that doesn't belong. It's enough to make me pause, to scan the ceiling corners, to wonder if the shadow has been waiting all along. If you've ever had a moment like this, that sudden, skin-crawling certainty that you are not alone, you understand why I keep every light burning. Darkness isn't empty. Sometimes it waits, patient as a spider in the corner of the room. Some evenings, I stand in the doorway before leaving for work, hand on the switch, debating whether to darken the house. But the thought of coming home to shadows makes my chest tighten. I leave the lights on, even if it means a higher bill. When friends visit, they tease me. They don't notice how my eyes keep drifting to the upper corners of the room, how I listen for the faint scrape that once woke me. It's not just fear, it's memory, etched into my senses like a scar. Every so often, a small thing will trigger it. The hush of a winter night, a brittle leaf skittering across the floor, a single strand of web glinting in the lamp's glow. My body reacts before I can reason. Heart pounding, breath sharp. I've tried to convince myself it was an ordinary spider, nothing more. But in quiet moments I remember its size, how its legs stretched wider than a dinner plate, how it seemed to study me, motionless but aware. I never knew where it came from or where it went after I slammed the door. And that's what lingers. The not knowing. If you've ever felt the weight of unseen eyes, you understand why I still glance upward before turning off a light. Because sometimes what hides in the corners doesn't leave when the night ends. I slowed the car only when the first faint lights of town flickered ahead. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel, every muscle locked with tension. The night around me seemed to press in, as if the forest itself wanted to pull me back. When I finally reached the pizzeria, the bright neon sign felt unreal. Too normal for what I'd just lived through. I parked beneath the buzzing lights and sat there, heart pounding so hard it hurt. My phone kept vibrating with missed calls, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. I just kept replaying every second of the drive, each shadow on the road behind me. Later, when the police examined my car, they found nothing but the faint smear of dried mud where someone's shoes might have rested. No fingerprints, no blood, just emptiness, like the night had swallowed every trace of what I'd seen. Even now, years later, I sometimes catch myself glancing in the rearview mirror, expecting to see that dark figure sitting silently in the back seat. The sound of those distant footsteps still echoes in my memory, a reminder that some encounters don't end when the night does.